Well, continuing our conversation on education, it's been a week since the reopening of schools, specifically for grades 7 and 12. And in the previous hour, we were discussing some of the challenges that have been faced during this period with the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA, Section 27, and the Congress of South African Students, COSAS, joined us during that segment. So to give us a departmental point of view and to respond to some of the concerns that have been raised, we join on the line now by spokesperson of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live, Mr. Mhlanga.
Good morning, Sakina. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Mr. Mhlanga, let's just start with some statistics at this point after the first week of schooling. How many schools were able to return and how many, more importantly, were not?
Well, Sakina, 24,000 schools were able to reopen. In KwaZulu-Natal, you remember it was about 100 that did not open because of basic services, but those have since been sorted out, and they will be reopening from today. And we are happy with what we've seen in the first week, because out of all those schools, most remained open, and screening and all those other health and safety measures continue to be implemented in schools. So we are happy that we are running. There are still some challenges, but we are sorting those out as we progress.
So just to bottom line it, in terms of grade 12 and 7 schools, the numbers that were expected to return last week and the numbers that actually returned, are you able to give us those?
No, we are not able to give. The provinces are still the reports. Remember, we were also receiving reports of some schools that were closing, even though they had opened a day or two later because of confirmed cases. So all that information is being put together. And when the minister meets MECs this week, a total figure of those schools will be given and will be able to report on the progress of the first week. And we are expecting that each province will have finalized their data, which we are going to share with the public.
All right. So to the best of your knowledge, Mr. Mhlanga, how many schools that had opened last week have had to be closed again? Because we know that this number may differ day to day with regard to the number of schools open and then close. But it appears that there could have be as many as, we are told, 196 schools either closed or that closed and couldn't be open. What is your assessment on what is happening with that regard?
Yeah, that number is right, because you have 67 in Gauteng, 33 in KZN, 3 in the Northwest, and 3 in Mpumalanga, and other provinces also reporting. So that number is about right. But the problem is that we had schools which were choosing to close themselves without following the standard operating procedures. And in those procedures, we have made it clear that no school should be making a decision to close. It's the health professional, after assessing the school and the impact of the infection, if it had been found and confirmed in that school, should then make a determination on what happens in that school. So the first week was in certain areas because of that misreading of the SOPs, but we hope that this week will be better because people would have received the clarification. So we will be able to give a clearer picture later this week after Minister has met the MECs, where each province will officially report on what took place in the different places, and we'll be able to see what it is that we need to do to improve the situation. But this was not to be unexpected, because it was the first week when learners were received and people were not sure as to what they should do. In some cases, SGBs felt they needed to force the school to close, and we then had to tell them that they couldn't do so. So the first week has basically forced everyone to read the standard operating procedures and understand them for implementation purposes.
And this has caused quite a bit of consternation. In the previous segment, NAPTOSA's Basil Manuel, for example, citing that there were instances in KwaZulu-Natal where you had officers, circuit officers that were closed, or, other officers because of cases of exposure. And yet when it comes to schools, the same does not apply. It's a matter of learners, teachers going back to school, even if those teachers had met with the very same members whose offices are now closed, they are just expected to continue as per usual. What's your response to that?
No, I'm aware of the case he's talking about. In fact, even the province spoke about it. It's a matter of some people not having been honest in disclosing their status, because it seems that someone they knew something about themselves, but they continue to interact with other people. So that's what we're appealing for, to people to be honest. If you know that you've come into contact with someone who was affected or someone who was infected, you need to disclose that information so that we can protect you, and so that we can also protect the other people that you interact with. So that matter has been dealt with, but his concern is valid, but it's not a matter of general application. In every case, we have said that a health professional must come to the school to conduct an assessment and determine what must happen next. In the majority of the cases, that's exactly what happened. The schools understand that they can't take a decision themselves because they don't have the knowledge, qualification, or even the expertise to make that type of medical assessment. So it's the health professionals who must do that. But we're also appealing to everyone who's involved in the schooling community, even members of the community themselves, to be honest. When you are being asked these questions about where you have been, whether you've come into contact with someone who's infected or affected, you need to be very honest, because you can't just trick your way into the school. You need to be honest so that we can help you, so that you can help other people. Otherwise, it's going to cause a lot of chaos in the schools once we discover that you are a carrier, or you are affected or infected in some way. So it's very important that we all disclose all the information at all times so that we all stay safe.
And listening to some of the other stakeholders and talking about the number of schools that had opened and had to be closed again, some are asking whether therein is there not perhaps a message to the Department of Education that the department should actually consider holding off or reviewing this decision to reopen schools until such time that everybody is satisfied that all infrastructure needs, amongst others, are addressed?
The first challenge is that you will never be able to satisfy everyone. The other point is that you'll never be able to fix everything at the same time. What we are saying is that the health and safety protocols that we've put in place are working. That's why we are able to identify people who have the virus or who are showing symptoms because of the stringent measures that have been put in place in schools. Some of these people, by the way, were walking around without knowing that they are affected or that they have symptoms or that they are infected. So because they're able to come to school where we have all these measures, they're able to be identified and are then able to be to assist them. So there's a benefit to having schools open because they're able to assist many more people who have to go through that screening process, even though they wouldn't be needing it if they were not in school. So there's actually an advantage. But it's important to say that out of 24,000 schools, if you have 200 schools that are closed, that cannot be a crisis. It's a matter of concern, yes, but we are dealing with those issues. This is what we actually prepared for. If you look at all the guidelines for keeping hygiene in schools, if you look at the guidelines on what to do when a confirmed case happens, and you look at the detail of the standard operating procedures, all of those things, they actually indicate that we anticipated that these types of cases would happen. The most important thing now is, what do you do? Are you conversant with all the steps that must be taken, and are you able to do the right thing to protect yourself and to protect those around you? That's what we need to focus on. But the coronavirus will be with us for a very long time. So if you were to sit and do nothing and wait until everyone is satisfied, then we'll be waiting for another 2-3 years without any schooling, and that we cannot afford to do.
Mr. Mhlanga, how many schools have not reopened at all for grades 7 and 12? And what is being done for learners in those grades from those schools?
The numbers of the schools that did not reopen, as I said earlier, will be made available later this week after all the provinces have reported and have shared the data with the minister. Only then will we be able to know exactly what happened. There are different reasons. Some, the infrastructure is good, but the health and safety protocols for COVID-19 were not met, which means there are certain areas which had not been finalized. For that, they will need to do. Others, the water had not arrived. Maybe the tank that was there, but there was not water inside the tank. So those are some of the reasons for the delay. So until such time that a meeting has taken place and a comprehensive report has been tabled by each and every province, we will not be able to know how many there are. The information is there in the provinces, but it's being finalized because we need accurate data. But it's a minority of schools. As I said, KZN has the largest number of schools, but there it was only 100. Out of 6,000 schools, only 100 didn't open, which means a large majority of the schools in that province were able to open. And in other provinces as well, it seems all the schools opened. If not, it was just small numbers. But as I said, the figures will be made available once each and every province has officially reported to the minister for her consideration, and thereafter we'll share the information.
But if you know what the problems are, then surely you have a sense of where these schools are, at least, Mr. Mhlanga.
Yeah, we know where the provinces that had water issues and those particular areas where the municipalities were battling with the provision of water and the schools did not have water, and Rand Water was still making its way there to deliver the tanks with water. So that would be the chief reason for the schools not having opened. So we anticipate that when Rand Water also submits its report, it will give us a sense of the progress that have been made. In fact, I was reading a report earlier this morning that there are certain schools in KZN that were ready to reopen this week, today, which did not open last week. So we're waiting for other provinces to give us that same information so that we're able to get a global picture of what happened nationwide.
But as stakeholders ourselves, we're keen to know which are some of these municipalities, Mr. Mhlanga. Where is it that these learners are not going to school? And I'll tell you why I asked this question, because one is aware, and keenly so, of the inequality levels that exist in our schooling system. And one is keen to know that we are not perpetuating once again these inequalities.
No, the drought-stricken areas are well known in South Africa. It's not necessarily because the municipality is refusing. It's because there would be water challenges generally in that area. In some of these areas, we've had to use rainwater for that. But when there's no rain, then you can't even have that water. That's why rainwater had to be brought on board to deliver water in those difficult areas where there was no water provision. And they've done a great job. We're just waiting to see their report, what it's going to say. But, you know, you go to Eastern Cape, you go to some parts of KZN, some parts of Limpopo, you will find that there was no water there, and rainwater has been there. In fact, some parts of Northwest as well, they have been there to deliver water. And we've been seeing the pictures of the work that they were doing. And that's what we are expecting to see in totality when we receive their report, to see the progress that they would have made to deliver water in those areas. But we are confident that all those challenges will be sorted out and every school will be back on track, because right now where we are as a sector, we are preparing for the return of the other grades as of the 6th of July.
Given that you were aware of the lack of water in some of these areas, because as you yourself point out, these are not new problems, why weren't those areas prioritized so as to make sure that when we are ready to return to schools, we know that those areas in particular would be ready?
No, they were prioritized. That's why we said Rand Water must go there, which is an entity that had not been there before. In some cases, you go there, you find that there's no one to receive the tanks. But you also go there, you find that there is actually a tank, but it's empty, which means the truck would have to go back and summon the one that has water to pump the water into the tank. So it's all those different things. You go to other places, you find that there's no access to those schools. for the trucks to be able to deliver that water. So it's a combination of problems that would have led to the delays. Many times, Randwater actually called us to say, please help us. We're at this school, we're trying to go in, there's no one able to give us access so that we can deliver the water. So there's been a combination of issues. In fact, in Mpumalanga, there was a protest by some business forum which blocked access to schools. 53 schools did not open as a result of people who were protesting, disrupting delivery of much needed infrastructure in the school for those schools to be able to open. So we also have a situation where some members of the communities themselves are to blame for the delays because we were not able to access those schools to do the work that we needed to do to prepare those schools. We've had MECs having to intervene politically to try to resolve those matters because of the protests that were in those areas. So there's been a whole range of things that we've had to deal with to get back schools on track. So it's not an easy job, but we are up to it. We believe that we'll be successful. In fact, we've learned some lessons already in the first week, which is giving us some important tips on what to do when we receive a much larger cohort of learners from the 6th of July.
Well, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we don't. Thanks so much to Elijah Mhlanga, spokesperson for the Basic Education Department, discussing the first week of the reopening of schools with us. Let's go to Leanne now for the latest.